Hey guys, I'm Venkat and this is part 16 of Web Development with Blazor video series. In this video, we'll discuss different types of DataGrid filters. We discussed the basics of DataGrid filtering in our previous two videos in this series. I'll include the link to the complete course page in the description box below this video. Out of the box, Syncfusion Blazor DataGrid supports different types of filters: filter bar, menu, checkbox, and Excel. In our previous two videos, we have seen filter bar in action. In this video, we'll discuss the rest of the three types of filters. Now, take a look at this data grid. This is the same grid we've been working with in our previous two videos in this series. At the moment, we have not explicitly specified the type of data grid filter we want. So by default, what we get is a filter bar. Notice for every column, we have a text box as the default filter interface. And notice this gender column here. We have a drop-down list. And to get this drop-down list as the filter interface, in the gender column, we're using a filter template. And with filter template, we can use any HTML element we want. In our case, we're using a drop-down list. So for the gender column, we have a drop-down list as the filter interface instead of the default text box. So the point is, if we don't explicitly specify the type of data grid filter that we want, by default, what we get is a filter bar. To explicitly specify the type of filter we want, we use grid filter settings component. And on this, we have type property. We set this to filter type. Filter type is an enum. And notice when I press dot, we can see all the different types of filters: checkbox, Excel, filter bar, which is the default, and menu. Let's try the menu filter. Notice now next to every column header text, we see a filter icon. And when I click on it, we see the filter menu in action. First, we have a drop-down list here with a list of operators that we can use, and then a text box here to type our filter value. Basically, the user interface of this filter menu is based on the underlying column data type. ID column data type is number. So if we take a look at the list of operators that we can use, notice these operators make sense for a number type. And then in this text box, for example, if I type 10, we're using the equal operator, click filter, we only see that specific record. If I want to use a different operator, maybe less than, and then click filter, we see the respective records. Obviously, to clear the filter, click the clear button. Last name column data type is string, and these operators make sense for a string type. Similarly, this date of birth column data type is datetime, obviously, and again the list of operators makes sense for a datetime data type. And if we take a look at the user interface itself, notice we have a calendar icon here, and when I click that, we see the calendar and we can pick and choose any date that we want. Similarly, we have another icon here which we can use to pick a time slot. For the gender column, we have a drop-down list as the filter interface. If you remember, we implemented this drop-down list in our previous video, and to implement it, we are using filter template. Inside this filter template, we can use any HTML element we want. And at the moment, we have filtering enabled on every column of the grid. So next to every column header text, we see this filter icon. Now, what if I don't want to allow filtering on email column? Well, it's very simple. On that respective grid column, simply set allow filtering property to false. Now, next to the email column, we don't have the filter icon anymore. At the moment, we have specified the type of data grid filter we want at the data grid level using this grid filter settings component. We specified we want a menu filter. So this means for every column in the data grid, we have a menu filter. Is it possible to have a different filter type on different data grid columns? For example, let's say on this employee ID column, I want checkbox filter, and maybe on this last name column, I want Excel-like filter. So basically, at the column level, we want to be able to override the filter type that we have specified at the data grid level using this grid filter settings component. Well, it's possible. And for that, on the respective column, we have to set filter settings property. The value for this property, as you can see from the IntelliSense, is an instance of filter settings class. So let's create a new instance. and then we want to set type property. Let's set the filter type to checkbox. Now on the ID column, we have checkbox filter, and on the rest of the data grid columns, we have menu filter, which is specified at the data grid level. In the checkbox filter, we see unique employee ID values in ascending order. And if we want to filter by specific ID values, we simply select those specific values and then click the filter button. The rows are filtered as expected. And to clear filtering, same idea, click this clear button. Now, we also have access to checkbox filter values. At the moment, we have a checkbox filter on this employee ID column. So we can access these unique employee ID filter values and modify them for display purpose if we want to. Let's actually do this. Let's prefix 0 for every single digit employee ID value. So these single digit employee ID values from 1 to 9, what we want to do is prefix a 0 and display them like 01, 02, 03, etc. And we only want to do that only for single digit employee ID values. Employee IDs 10 and greater, we want to display them as it is. To access checkbox filter values, we use filter item template. In here, we're going to write a few lines of C# code. So let's include a razor code block and then create a variable, name it filter context. Here is the important bit to keep in mind. Inside this filter item template component, we have access to an implicitly named variable called context, and we can typecast that to filter item template context. Through this variable, we have access to the filter value. So let's create another variable, call it filter value. On the filter context variable, we have value property. Each filter value, as you can see from the IntelliSense, is returned as an object type. So let's convert it to integer first and then check if the value is less than or equal to 9. If it is less than or equal to 9, then we want to prepend 0 and then the filter value. Finally, display the value we have in the variable. Now, in the checkbox filter, notice every single digit employee ID value has a 0 prepended. Now let's quickly check if filtering also works as expected. There we go. Now, on this last name column, instead of using the menu filter, let's use Excel-like filter. Same idea. On the last name column, set filter settings property. Create a new instance of filter settings. Set the type property to filter type .excel. Now, as expected, on the last name column, we have Excel-like filter. We can use the search text box to search for specific employees. Notice we also have all the text filters here, including a custom filter. Now, let's find all the employees whose last name starts with LN. Notice as soon as I type, I see the list of employees that have, the last name that starts with these letters. And if I type something else, the list is updated accordingly. So let's find all employees whose last name starts with LN and contains letter 2. Click OK. Notice filtering works as expected. And if we want to see the filter that is applied, click on the filter icon again, and we can see the custom filter that is applied. And to clear filtering, same idea, click clear filter button. That's it in this video. Thank you for listening.